What's up, Pod Pals? It's your buddy Adam from Podcasting Business School, the show where I teach podcasters how to love their podcast like a hobby and build like a business. This is a very special, not just a special, a very special podcast audit session. So I have two Pod Pals with me. I've got Alice. I've got Jessamy from the Imposter Syndrome Club podcast. Alice, Jessamy, how are we doing today?
Hey, Adam. Thanks for having us.
Hey,
Straight
Adam, doing great.
Straight out of Australia. It's super early, 7:30 in the AM, Melbourne time. So I appreciate that. It's podcasting into the future. That's how it works. So we're gonna rock and roll with this. I am intrigued by your show. I think it's an interesting concept. I know you do have some loyal super fans out there that you're building up, and we're aiming to do a little bit more of that. So let's forecast 6 months from now. I love to start off these sessions with this type of a question. So let's say I give you some sort of amazing wisdom today and you're able to break through some of your barriers, and you're able to achieve some of your goals. Like, what would success or like extreme success look like and feel like for your show 6 months from today if we're sitting down and having another conversation like this? So Jessamy, why don't you start it off, and then I'll let Alice follow up on this. So 6 months from today, what would a success with your podcast look like?
Yeah, okay. So I think, we've only been around for 6 months, so we're relatively new. But in that time, I feel like the audience that we've developed, while still relatively small, are a really engaged audience that we have a lot of interaction with. So I'd love to see, yes, I'd love to see the audience grow. I'd like the vibe to remain the same. So it feels like we're growing our network of friends, of collaborators, of conversations that we have with our listeners and our fans. So I guess growth, but in the right way, with the right people.
Yeah, I totally get it. I'm the same way. I like to keep that homegrown, like we're all this special community type of a vibe, and that I feel like I know my people. Like Jessamy, you and I have interacted back and forth a little bit. Like I know that what you got cooking, what you got going on. When people get into my world, I'm like, I like to develop relationships. So I totally get what you're going for there. All right, Alice, what would success in the next 6 months look like for you?
Echoing what Jess says, definitely keeping the vibe we've got. And I think for me, that element of fun and of our personalities is super important to me in terms of what we're making. And I think like where I would want to expand on that is maybe getting more kind of our dream guests. Like we've been super lucky with who we've interviewed. And I guess for me, it would just be seeing that continue and expand a bit more globally.
Okay, cool. So I'm kind of getting the vibe of let's grow it. Let's keep having fun. Let's keep it special. Let's stay connected to our community and keep creating awesome and creative content. Would that feel like about right for you too?
That feels so good to hear.
Okay.
I love that. Yeah.
Well, when it comes to growth, there are a few different levers that we can pull. One lever is social media marketing. So getting out there and using techniques to grow in social media. Another lever that we can pull is paid advertising, things like podcast player app ads, Facebook and Instagram ads, things like that. And the third lever that we can pull is leveraging other people's podcasts, guesting on other people's shows, doing interview swaps, promo swaps, and things like that. Out of those three levers, so social media marketing, paid marketing, and other people's podcasts, how are we doing on those? Like, are we doing any of them? Are we feeling pretty good about one, but not the others? Because I'd like to focus on the weakest link there to see if we can level that up a little bit. So, Jessamy, where do you feel like we're at on those three?
So I think number 3 is something we're starting to focus on, going on other people's podcasts. So we've done one. Okay. And we're looking to do more. We've got another one booked in the next couple of weeks. So I think that's something that feels like a really good fit for me too. I think paid advertising maybe at the moment doesn't so much vibe with me. And in terms of social media marketing, I think we do okay on the socials. I don't know exactly what you mean with marketing. We've got a very good engaged audience on social media. And of course, with every new guest, that grows by a little bit, and we encourage them to share on their channels and that sort of thing. So in terms of like organic socials presence, I think the growth is slow, but it's happening. And paid advertising is not something we've really considered or maybe would consider at this stage.
Okay, cool. So let me give you a little bit of herbs and spices for all three, just like some getting started stuff. And these are just tips that I know because they've worked very well for me. They've worked very well for my clients and for my audience members. So when it comes to other people's podcasts, since you all have guests on your show primarily, is that correct? Okay.
50-50.
We do, yeah,
Okay.
we do a split.
A good split. Okay. So I would highly recommend prioritizing guests that have podcasts that you could potentially be a guest on. This, when I launched my first show in the health and weight loss space, what I used to do is I would go to the top 200 lists in Apple. That was the only one. Spotify wasn't even like a thing way back in the stone age of podcasting. So I'd go to the Apple top 200 in the health space. And I would say, all right, who is it number 200 ranked podcast? Would they be a good guest for me? Would I be a good guest for them? Cool. They're a fit. I'd invite them on. And then I wouldn't even talk about being on their show. So I'm like, I need guests anyway. I'm going to have them on my show. I'm good at making friends. And I got so good at this technique, 8 out of 10 of those situations, I would get invited back on their show. So I was like, I need to do interviews anyway. I'm going to have top ranked podcasters on my show. I'm going to make friends with them. And 8 out of 10 times I'm going on their show as well. So I was on a very high percentage of the top 200 podcasts. And that's when I took my show from hundreds of downloads to thousands of downloads to over 20,000 downloads a month with that strategy, just guessing on other people's podcasts if you're going to have guests on your show anyway, it helps just to kind of scan for, if you have options, let's scan and prioritize people that actually have shows that you could potentially be a guest on as well. Is that making sense so far?
Yep.
Okay. So that's one strategy that you could use with that. And also look at who you're having on as a guest and what other shows have they been on? Who have they been interviewed by? People in the podcasting space, we're all great connectors and we're all like, we love to introduce people to our pod pals and our other connections. So if you go, hey, I noticed you were interviewed by so-and-so. That's one of my favorite authors. I'd love to have them on. Could you make a warm introduction? Most of the time, like, oh yeah, this was a great interview. I had a lot of fun on your show. I think they will too. Let me make an introduction. Or maybe they've co-authored a book with somebody else that you'd really love to interview and be connected with. So don't hesitate to reach out and make those sorts of connections. Cool. Mm-hmm. Okay. When it comes to paid ads with the stage that you're in, I would avoid Instagram and Facebook right now. Like I wouldn't.
Oh,
it's
I'm
too
so
dangerous.
glad you said that.
Now, I mean, it's
exhale.
Yeah. Actually, Alice, I want you to spend $10,000 per day. Like I haven't spent any money on Facebook or Instagram in years, to be honest, to be completely honest. What I do is I like to advertise in podcast player apps where people are logging in to listen to shows. You can run little banner ads and you can scoop up. Like I've ran an ad that was less than $200 and I've scooped up over 100 new subscribers, not just downloads, but people hitting the subscribe button and downloading multiple episodes. So you can do these on a very small budget, $100, a couple $100. But the app that I like to start people out on is called overcast.fm. So overcast.fm/ads. You can go on there. You can see pricing. The prices change daily. And if you guys decide to venture into those woods and you think you want to place an ad, just check in with me because I have charts because I'm a nerd. I have charts of good pricing for each category. And I'm like, oh, the business category, that's $1,000. I've paid $400 for that category. Don't buy, wait until it's demand-based pricing. So that is something that I would look at there. Now, any questions about that or what that looks like as far as how
No, I actually use Overcast and I've seen those ads at the bottom. So
okay, so perfect. So yeah, It basically, you pick the category, and whatever category that is, your banner ad just flashes up as people listen to that podcast. So the reason I like that versus Facebook or Instagram is that we are advertising to people listening to a podcast in a category that we want to be in front of. So they don't have to, like on a Facebook ad, who knows if they even know what a podcast is. And then they have to go off the app onto something else, find the show, and we can't track it very well. So like you get analytics that say, here's how many people saw the banner. Here's how many people tapped on the banner. Here's how many people hit the subscribe button on your podcast. And that's legit. And they make a little projection. So it's super cool to look through. So that's something just to explore. I would at least gain knowledge around that. So as your marketing budget expands, then that's something to look at. So then social media marketing, my number one tip, my number one strategy, again, super simple, is my 72-hour marketing window. Now, are you putting out weekly episodes? What's the episode release look like?
Yeah, every Tuesday morning.
Okay, perfect. That's when I do mine. Great day, Tuesday. Shout out to all the Tuesday podcasters out there. So a lot of podcasters will roll out, Instagram posts or do a live or do a reel or post on LinkedIn, and they kind of stretch it out over the week. And what I recommend people do is put all of their marketing for that episode within 72 hours of when that episode actually drops, because it's kind of, there's a little bit of algorithmic magic in Apple Podcasts and Spotify, where if you drive traffic to their platform over a 72-hour period, that algorithm is a little more sensitive to that, if that makes sense.
Right.
And so if people are searching your keywords that your show's known for, things like that, you are going to be shown more frequently to those people, and more, they're going to put you out there more, basically. So, and this happens, I recommend this all the time, and people don't believe me. And then they do it and they're like, you know what? That really worked. I get emails all the time where people are like, didn't think it would work, and it totally worked. I doubled my downloads. I had one person 10x their downloads, didn't change anything, didn't run any ads, just compressed it to 72 hours. I challenge people to put out 5 marketing assets in 72 hours. So it's doable. Like maybe one is an Instagram reel. Maybe one is a carousel post. Maybe you go live, even like an email to your list that counts as a marketing asset. I mean, I like that a lot. So what I do, I release on Tuesday morning. So you could even use this as a template. Tuesday morning, I'll put out a carousel post. I primarily use Instagram. I don't really focus on any other platform. So I give all podcasters permission to just post on one platform. That's fine if your people are there. So carousel posts in the AM, I go live in the PM. That PM live is, I take a sliver of a topic that was discussed, and I go live and I talk about that. That way I can reference back to the episode and go, hey, if you're enjoying this conversation, you're going to love my latest episode. Here's what that's about. Now, if you have an interview, what I'd recommend is invite that guest. That episode just goes live on a Tuesday. Invite them to go live with you on that night or that week. And if you do this on Instagram, push notifications go out to your audience and their audience. And that is unique in Instagram. It's a great way to pick up followers, especially if you're already kind of seeing that organically happen. Like when I had my health show, I did a live with somebody that had 300,000 Instagram followers. I picked up 300 new followers in 15 minutes. And it's like, I did a lot of business out of those relationships too. So it was awesome. So I go live in the PM. Wednesday morning, I'll do an Instagram reel, and I'll put out my newsletter, email blast. And then Thursday, I'll do one more carousel or a reel. So that's my five assets over basically 2.5 days. And it works really, really well when it comes to being able to get your show out there. So any thoughts around that, or any roadblocks on being able to pull that off, or hesitations?
I was just hoping to. Oh, sorry, Jess. Do you want to?
No, you go, Alice. You go.
This is just a very literal, basic question, but in terms of the going live, like, do you have a suggestion in terms of a time frame for that?
So great question. I'm glad you're thinking about time efficiency, because it's very important in online marketing. Like, we have a media company when you have a podcast, and it's so easy to be like, I'm going to post in all the areas. I'm going to do all the thing. My whole life is going to be live, live, live. And it just burns us out. So I'm glad you're thinking this way. What I do is, or what I've noticed, I've been going live on Tuesday night for, I think, almost 4 years in a row. Like every Tuesday, I just do it every Tuesday. And what it seems to me is a push notification. So like if you see me on Instagram live, you'll notice about every 10 to 12 minutes that I'm live, more people come flooding in. So that's when a push notification goes out going, hey, Adam's live, Podcasting Business School, come check it out. And it keeps feeding new people into the stream. So I try to cross that barrier and go for 30 minutes, if I can. So at least 12 minutes, because that way I'll get 2 push notifications at the beginning and at the 12-ish minute mark. But then if I can extend it to 20, 25, I try to get a couple of those pushes in there, unless I run out of things to say, and then I cut it off. But I very rarely run out of things to say. Good news for everybody. But that is, and then as far as the time of day, that's also very important. And we want to figure out when your audience is active. So you can look at your analytics on the social media platform. When is your audience most active? You can look at your other posts and go, okay, I posted this in the AM versus the PM. What got more engagement? And then test it out a little bit before you commit and go, I'm going to go live for 4 years in a row at Tuesday night at 5:30 p.m. Central. Test it out. Test different days, different times of day. See when you get that natural audience engagement. They're showing up. And you have to think about your audience. Like if you have an audience of entrepreneurs, it's actually better to go a little bit earlier because entrepreneurs set their own schedule. They can, go off the clock at any time. They welcome a distraction during the day. If you're targeting parents, you don't want to go live during dinner time or like a traditional like family time. So if you're targeting stay-at-home moms, you can go live during midday, so you have to think about where your audience is located, what their interests are, when they're going to be available. You could poll them. This is a great Facebook or Instagram poll. We're going to go live. What day would you prefer? What time would you prefer? And ultimately you have to test it out, test, 2 or 3 times and days, see when your audience shows up, and then lock in and just go and go and go. And I've been doing this for 4 years straight. There are some times that only one person is on there watching me. I'm just up there, but I'll talk to one person because I remember when 0 people were there talking to me. So that's like 100% different. I got one person, and sometimes I have hundreds of people there, and it's just kind of what's going on in the world, what's happening with my audience, what's happening with the algorithm. And, I'm committed. I know if I commit to show up for my audience, they will commit to show up for me as well. So I'm like, every Tuesday, I'm just going to show up. Let's go. Is that helpful, Alice?
It really is. I'm feeling this kind of like physical terror at the thought of no one coming to my birthday party. But what you said about committing to it, like I very much understand.
Yeah.
And it was really helpful hearing you say that thing about sometimes there's only one person, because if that happens, I'll feel better about it.
I had like 4 people on there last week. I was like, all right, it's 4 people. Let's just go. They're going to get the good stuff. I'm like, those are the 4 people that are meant to hear what I have to say tonight.
Yeah.
So let's just coach to them. And one of them signed up for my $1,000 boot camp. Like, all right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, and exactly what you say about it's not about the people that didn't show up. It's like if one person did, to respect their time as much as anyone else, because at the end of the day, everyone is listening as one person, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly. And one of my true superpowers that I figured out is it took me a long time to figure out how to build my audience. Like no one was really listening to my first show for years, like very few people. And I was so frustrated and so hungry. Like I would have just died if I would have been able to talk to 2 people like this. I'm like, oh my God, 2 people, like this is great. So I always remember that. I just spoke on stage at PodFest last weekend, and I was like, we have to always remember the crickets, and we have to show up with that mindset every day, even when we do have an audience. So when we do have a giant audience, you show up with gratitude that all those people are tuning in, and you talk to them like you're that hungry person that's just starving for your first listener. And if you show up that way, your energy is so different, and it's just, you're so focused. And like people, even when I speak on stage and stuff like that, they feel like I'm talking to them. because I really am. And I'm just really excited that anyone is listening at all. I just try to just pour that gratitude out into whatever audience vessel is out there. So just kind of keep that in mind too. And that's good practice. And even if you do an Instagram live or wherever you go live, and no one shows up or very few people show up, you can save that video into your feed. And that's an asset that you can reference later on. You could have that link, maybe kind of view it like a webinar, like an evergreen webinar, and go, okay, I'm going to rock this out. I know it's good stuff, and it just wasn't the right time of day or whatever. Maybe some big sporting event was happening in the world and people were tuning into that. And, you're like, oh, live on Super Bowl night. Oh no, I shouldn't have done that. World Cup finals. Oh, bad timing. So
I'm going to blame the Olympics all the time, always.
Olympics.
Why is the Olympics always on, like every Tuesday at 5:00?
Always on. It's that rhythmic dancing and jazz water skiing and God, so many events. So I think that's going to be, how do we feel about the 72-hour marketing window? Do you feel like that is doable? Like we can pull this off?
Yeah, and I think we're not that far off doing that already anyway. Good. So, we've been really consistent. We haven't missed a week since we started with actually releasing the podcast. It's come out at the same time every week. Every Thursday we do, thank you. We do some sort of interactive social media post. So we post something related to the episode and ask a question. Good. Then the rest has been a bit more ad hoc in terms of when we put out reels or like tiles with a pull quote and stuff, and that could probably just be tightened up to be within that window. But I think we're not far off it, which is cool.
Great. And as you grow your show, kind of grow your media company vibe, it will help to have set like, okay, on this day it's a reel, and this other day. Yeah. That way you can just pour your creativity into that. It's not, you can waste creativity if you're like, all right, I have to figure out what to post, what format, and then what content to post in that format. If you already know the format and you're like, then you're thinking, all right, carousel post or thinking reel or whatever. Like I know when I'm getting my reel ideas going, I love to do the little reface things with I'm sticking my face on like Arnold Schwarzenegger's body with the video, or like, something that looks ridiculous. I did one with The Notebook where I was not only Ryan Gosling, but also whatever the girl's name is, the actress as well. Like I played both parts with my face on it. I'm like a hideous female. But like stuff like that. So I started thinking about that. I love using images from the show The Office. Or I'll get my 7-year-old daughter involved. So I know I want to do a reel. I start getting into this creativity mode of like, what would be funny, what would work with the theme of the week or whatever. So that helps quite a bit. Now, before we go, we got a little bit of time left here. I've got some ideas. Alice mentioned getting or continue to get bigger name guests. All right. Mm-hmm. So I mentioned a tip earlier where as you network with other people, but you have people on your show, you go on their show, again, look at who else they're affiliated with. So if you can get a warm introduction, that's gold. Who else have you interviewed? Who else are you connected to? Whose shows have you been on? And asking for a warm introduction after you successfully go on their show, have a great conversation, or they go on your show and have a great conversation. That's a great thing. Now, I've had 2 of my all-time favorite authors on my show. I've had Gretchen Rubin on. I've had Michael Hyatt on. I read all their stuff. I love their podcasts. I was totally like fanboy city. And the way I got both of them on my show is I waited for them to do their next book launch. And I went on Instagram and I sent voice messages. So when you send a voice message on social, it's just like a purple play button. And, they get all sorts of DMs, whatever, hundreds, if not thousands. But that purple play button, there's audio behind that. And that could be somebody wanting to give them $1 million or buy 1 million books. They don't know. So the curiosity is there where they'll hit it and listen. And on the other side is my big, robust podcaster voice being like, Michael Hyatt, my man, I'm your #1 fan. I wanted to cordially invite you onto my show. I would love to talk about your new book, blah, 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 blah. And he DM'd me right back. And I was like, dude, that was quick. This is awesome. And we booked and we had him on. Because when they're in promo mode, they have a new book, they have a new course, they have a new thing that they're launching. They're looking to go out and get on shows. And their PR people out there searching as well. So kind of keep your list of high profile people and go, when do they have a thing that they might want to promote? And once they're in that zone, you go after them and you go Instagram voice DMs, email their PR agent person, like just go every avenue. Your rate of success will be so much higher if they're kind of in that active promotion mode. So I would just keep a list and kind of keep an eye out for when those sorts of things are happening, book launches and such. And you'll, like, I've had some people on my show, I'm like, how did that even happen? Why did they want to talk to me? So it's if I can do it, you two can definitely do it. So any thoughts or questions around that?
No,
Solid.
I think that sounds great. Thanks, Adam.
I've mesmerized them with my words.
It's a funny thing, I think, like just noticing, I'm like, yes, like these are great suggestions and great plans, but there is still part of me, I think, because the way that our podcast has grown to date has been very organic, and how we've connected with our audience has been very organic. So just noticing part of this, like, oh, this feels a bit like very methodical, but also I want the podcast to be successful and get great guests and meet more people. So trying to balance the two things of keeping it feeling like us, and true to our original intent, but also putting things in place so that it can grow and reach more people.
Yeah. And to that point, I think what feels really heartening is that all of the advice you've given, I feel like aligns with those initial success statements that we said, and is very similar or close to, or can build on things that we're already doing. So it doesn't feel like being like, oh my God, you guys need to open a TikTok account and do this. I'm like, no.
We have a TikTok account, Alice. We just don't really.
I know.
And you need to spend $10,000.
I don't know about that.
Yeah. So, well,
so thank you, Adam.
Well,
yes.
I appreciate the vibe that you're trying to put out there. And just another quick suggestion is, like, anytime you can get your listeners involved in your show, whether it's like audio submission, doing a community-based episode like I do every month. I do my Pod Pal Zoom party where I invite my listeners to come on the show. We'll have 20 podcasters on and kind of throw that monthly party, the imposters party. They can all wear masks or something, and but those are a lot of fun. And when you're really community focused and community driven, if you can get those people onto your show, they take ownership over it. And all of a sudden they're not just a subscriber, they become a super fan, and they're out there telling other people, like, you have to come to the next party with Jessamy and Alice. It's so great. We talked about blah, blah, blah. And they gave away a t-shirt or something like that. And you kind of build your legend, and those people really appreciate it, because it's kind of like, imagine, a podcast that you really enjoy listening to, and all of a sudden the host throws a party that you can actually go on the show and talk to them and interact and be a part of the community. You're going to kind of get pumped up about it. Like, oh, that was super cool. And you're probably going to keep listening to that show. Like, as long as you have a good experience. So that's something else to consider. Now, I want to make sure that we shout out where people can find you, website, social media, where you hang out, things like that. So Jessamy, why don't you shout out what we got for where people can go to hang out with Jessamy and Alice?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find us at impostersyndromeclub.com or on Instagram at imposterpod. They're the two main places that we hang out, really. And of course, you can find us on all podcast players, the Imposter Syndrome Club.
Outstanding. All right. Well, Pod Pals out there listening in, if you want to be just like Alice and Jessamy, if you want to get signed up for Podcast Audit, head over. Don't walk, run to the nearest podcastingbusiness.school website. Go over there, get signed up, get on the calendar. There's a little bit of a wait list. Go to podcastingbusiness.school, get signed up today. Jessamy, Alice, thank you so much for coming on and allowing me to audit your podcast.
Thank you so much, Adam. You've been incredibly generous.
Thank you so much, Adam.
You're very welcome, my friends. All right. For all of the rest of you listening in, I'm going to send you out into the podcasting wild, wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. We will see you next time.